are back. Welcome to Study Space Podcast. Today you are chilling with Noluthando
and committee Alimata.
So guys, today's topic is very mind-grabbing as it involves a love triangle. For those who doesn't know what a love triangle is, love triangle refers to a relationship which involves three people whereby two people love the same person. And as a result, that results to what? It leads to conflict and emotional or difficult choices. In this case, our focus will be based on a novel written by Bessie, a South African woman born in Pietermaritzburg, 1937. This novel was published in 1971 entitled Maru. The novel narrates a story of a woman from Masarwa who relocated from England to Dilepe village. While she is in that village and working as an educator, she involves herself in a relationship whereby two Dilepe men fall in love with her. Their relationship becomes rooted by post-colonial legacies, which conveys a coloniality system that imposed challenges of racism, sexism, and classism.
Going to characterization, we've got three people who are in this love triangle, which are Maru, Margaret, and Moleka. Maru is a dreamer, imagination, powerful person, and Margaret is a young woman, courageous, who has willing power and a vibrant creative mind. While Moleka is an open-minded person, energetic, and challenges social norms.
So the aim of this podcast is to analyze how Bessie uses a love triangle to portray a modern allegory of post-colonial betrayal and power relations between the colonizer and the colonized. Modern allegory is a story that addresses modern concern through the use of symbols, characters, and events.
Using three key elements to reflect on how this love triangle displays post-colonial betrayal and power relation between the Dilepe and Masarwa nation. These key elements includes power dynamic, colonial legacies, decolonial resistance. Margaret Cadmore's character is used as a colonized allegory, a woman in a love triangle that represent the marginalized nation of Masarwa. She is an educated, dignified, and liberating woman. She goes beyond internalized colonialism norms imposed by the Dilepe people.
The author uses the character of Maru to portray the allegory of the colonizer. Maru is conveyed as a powerful character. He is a chief and he uses his colonial powers to colonize the Masarwa nation. As he is displayed as a person who is a chief and owns the Masarwa slaves. He uses his power to find Margaret or to marry Margaret, even though Margaret didn't want to be in a relationship with him. We also have the character of Moleka, who is Maru's best friend. Moleka and Maru, their friendship is strong and they've been friends since they were young. Somehow Maru thinks that their friendship will be exploited or their friendship will be destroyed by a woman, which tend to be strong or to be evident along the novel. Adding, the power dynamics are represented differently in this novel, as we have three classes differentiated from a hierarchy. Maru, positioned in the above level of the hierarchy, Moleka in the middle, and Margaret below the level of the hierarchy. This power dynamics gives us a theme of classism. Classism leads the characters in the novel to perform different duties that reflect to a colonial system. Moleka is a womanizer. He is a man who uses and engage himself with women for different reasons, and so different women. So Dikeleti introduces Margaret to Moleka as a new educator. Moleka first time seeing Margaret makes him to fall in love with her. And that reflects what love at first sight. Because Moleka didn't love Margaret because of who she was, he even emphasized that he doesn't understand and know why he's feeling this way for Margaret. Between the power of these two men, which is Moleka and Maru, there is a paternalist approach displayed in the novel. So, a paternalist approach refers to a system or a process whereby a person uses power to control a certain individual and to be responsible for their autonomy. Delving into the paternalist approach, Maru uses both Maru and Moleka uses colonial powers to approach or to exert love for Margaret. So Maru uses the colonial powers of the colonizer. Maru forces Margaret to be his lover. On the other hand, Moleka fails to approach or represent his love for Margaret because Margaret is a Masarwa.
What hindered Moleka from approaching Margaret?
Okay, before I can answer your question, Alimata, let me just do a recap of what we've talked about.
Alright.
If I may remind you guys, in the beginning of our conversation, we introduced to you the love triangle as an allegory of post-colonial power relations and betrayal. And then we raised the theme of racism, sexism, and classism. One of the reasons Moleka didn't want to marry Margaret is because of the difference in their class. Remember, I said Moleka is in the middle of the hierarchy, and Margaret is is the lower level of the hierarchy because of having a Masarwa identity. According to the novel, Masarwa people were marginalized and they were just taken as slaves. They were supposed to be uneducated, they were supposed to be oppressed, as all those imposed colonial system make them to be subjected to that oppression, as what was happening during colonial South Africa. Those system imposed to them evoke the emotion of discrimination. And then that's where racism comes. Racism also hindered their approach. So Masarwa people were discriminated because of their identity, of who they were. So that is the other reason Moleka didn't want to approach Margaret.
I thought that Maru tricked Moleka from not wanting her to date Margaret.
According to your understanding,
yes,
Maru is the reason that Moleka didn't want
to approach Margaret. But
yes,
since you explained it, I have a clear understanding.
And that is also valid. Maru is the reason that Moleka didn't approach or tell Margaret about confess about his feelings to Margaret. Remember what Maru did in the novel. Maru did all the bad things to stop Moleka from approaching Margaret. And then there's this scene whereby Maru tells Moleka to go and take back the bed that Margaret was using. So because of that, Maru didn't want Margaret to love or to admire Moleka.
Now I understand how colonial system between Dilepe and Masarwa people led to decolonial resistance. Even though Margaret was discriminated against because of her identity, even when her co-workers found out that she's a Masarwa, Pete and Seth wanted to make Margaret to lose her job. But Margaret did not, she only persevered. Even when her friend Dikeledi told her to hide her identity, that made Margaret to embrace her Masarwa identity. By so doing Margaret was able to challenge the social norms and decolonize resistance.
And exemplifying
decolonial resistance.
Adding upon decolonial resistance, Maru and Moleka's character also exemplify decolonial resistance in different ways. Moleka reflects decolonial resistance through his liberal actions. On the other hand, Maru reflects the colonial resistance through going against the social norms, which are normalized or are culturized by colonialism. So this includes what? It includes sexism. So Maru uses a different strategy of colonialism. He changes what the colonial system rule. Instead of abusing Margaret because of being a Masarwa, by enslaving her or by making her to do whatever those colonial Western rules imposed to black Africans. He comes with a new strategy. He abuses Margaret's feelings. He forces Margaret to be his wife. That's a different way of colonialism. Again, Moleka uses his liberal ways to go against colonial systems. There is a part whereby Moleka dines with slaves, and then he feeds a slave with a fork and then use the same fork to feed himself. By doing so, Moleka challenges the colonial system, and that serves as a decolonial resistance. Just to explain on how Moleka is a liberated man. Moleka is portrayed as a liberated man because of his open-mindedness. Moleka is willing to go against the societal norms by dining with a Masarwa slave and then sharing a same fork with that person. Again, the social or the cultural norms doesn't stop him from loving Margaret. Even though his liberative approach is hindered by his social position, so leading to him not finally getting to love or to approach Margaret.
Again, Margaret is able to challenge social norms by uplifting her Masarwa identity and pride.
Okay, going to conclusion, guys. So Maru is a novel by Bessie, which is a powerful exploration of identity, love, and societal complexities in post-colonial Botswana. The novel concludes with Maru's transformation. Maru tends to transform from the normal social or cultural system whereby he falls in love with a Masarwa person. And then another thing is Margaret's empowerment. Even though Margaret is oppressed, she doesn't use that as a system that will oppress or change his life or stop her from accomplishing what she wants. Instead, she finds strength in her identity and heritage. Ultimately, she embraces her Masarwa roots. So, despite the challenges portrayed in the novel ends with a hopeful note whereby it promotes inclusiveness, and this towards it shapes a future of inclusivity and unity amongst Africans.
This novel reflects on power dynamic and cultural challenges in our own society as we are living in the post-colonial Africa. Emphasizing the need to decolonize our psychological being through promoting cultural inclusivity and unity, challenging our biases and assumptions.
Thanks for your time and watching us, guys. We love you. Siyanithanda.